Welcome to the project tonight. Untouchable elbow gets straight back to work as the opposition tears itself apart. Questions now over blowing up the coalition and starting again.
Also, the risks surrounding a so-called miracle medication every Aussie pet owner needs to know about.
In the end, it was the kindest thing I could do is let her go.
The latest Trump tariff battle, and Aussie filmmakers are in the firing line while the local industry could be wiped out.
And he's done it again. It's unbelievable. Oscar Piastri has won another Grand Prix. We unpack what makes him the fastest driver on the planet. And I've got an inside scoop. Apparently, I know he's quick, but his three-point turn is worse than Pricey's.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Have you seen how fast he drives after the show, though? He's out of here.
I think that's to get away from me, potentially.
Wouldn't it be good if they had every Grand Prix in Miami? Because I got up this morning and just watched the whole race. Didn't have to get up in the middle of the night.
You know, it's a great time when it's in Australia. That's one of the best times. It's a Grand Prix. Yeah.
Thank you, Sam.
We're live from Gadigal Land, of course. I would introduce Steve Price, but he's already spoken.
Let's get some top stories for today now. And online friends have testified today at the murder trial of accused mushroom killer Erin Patterson. Describing her as a super sleuth, they gave evidence about her interest in true crime. They told the court she talked about her love of mushrooms in their Facebook group. Erin's estranged husband also finished his evidence today. The 50-year-old mother of two has denied deliberately poisoning her in-laws and has pleaded not guilty. 10 News First reporter Samantha Butler was at court. Sam, we heard from some of Erin's online acquaintances. What did they have to say?
Well, Sarah, as you said, they described Erin Patterson as a bit of a super sleuth in this true crime group that they were all part of. They basically created a bit of a private group chat to discuss quite intimate parts of their life. They told the court that Erin opened up about her family. She spoke about her children and also about the difficulties she was having in her relationship with estranged husband Simon Patterson. The friends told the court Erin had described him as coercive and controlling and difficult to get along with because of his strong religious beliefs. Now, we also heard that Erin spoke about how excited she was to buy a food dehydrator, about her love for mushrooms, and she even asked them for advice on how to cook a beef Wellington. Now, we know that is the dish she served up at the lunch at her Leongatha home in 2023, allegedly laced with death cap mushrooms, but that is something that she denies. She says she didn't deliberately poison anyone.
Yeah, we also heard again from Erin Patterson's estranged husband. What did Simon bring today?
Yeah, well, this was Simon Patterson's third day in the witness box under cross-examination by Erin Patterson's defence barrister, Colin Mandy, SC, and he raised a discussion that Simon had with Erin 2 days after the lunch while she was in hospital receiving treatment. During that conversation, the court heard she told Simon about the fact she had been dehydrating mushrooms previously and putting them in muffins, but during that conversation, it was put to Simon Patterson that he had actually asked Erin if that's what she used to poison them being his family members, his parents and his aunt and uncle. Now, Simon Patterson emphatically denied that accusation. He also insisted that Erin Patterson never asked about the worsening condition of his parents as they lay fighting for life in hospital, and that really stood out to him as something quite odd. Now, this, of course, is Simon Patterson's final day in the witness box, but there are still plenty of witnesses to come. Sarah.
Samantha Butler, thank you.
Okay. Well, Anthony Albanese has returned to Canberra, walking a victory lap up the hill to Parliament in the wake of Labor's landslide election win. But vote counting does continue, with Teal MP Monique Ryan now at risk of losing her seat in Kooyong, as his independent Zoe Daniel is trying to hang on in Goldstein. Greens leader Adam Bant, however, is still confident he'll retain his seat of Melbourne, despite currently trailing Labor's Sarah Whitty.
We expect we'll have between 1 and 4 seats in the Parliament once the final votes are counted.
Still a bit to shake out.
Yes.
I think it is fair to say that the result itself was not unexpected, but the extent and the nature of it was just gobsmacking. And now it's really a question of what does it mean? Like, is this a moment where something unusual happened, or is the die cast in a way that is huge for Labor and worrying for the coalition?
Well, this has been coming for a while, hasn't it? I mean, you saw the last election when Anthony Albanese won. The victory at the weekend, I think, we talked there about blowing up the coalition. They've blown themselves up. I mean, and I don't know now what is their natural constituency. It was all going to be about, remember, at the start of this campaign, they had their nose in front. They were going to win a raft of outer suburban seats, particularly in Victoria. and also in New South Wales. It didn't happen. Incredibly, you know, I'm 70 years old. I could never, ever imagine that the Liberal Party don't hold one seat in Metropolitan Adelaide, not one. And they only hold 6 in New South Wales.
It was so surprising to see Peter Dutton so utterly confident right up until...
Well, was he?
Was he really? You
I'm,
have to
no,
be,
no.
don't you?
I'm being told in the background that he wasn't overconfident.
pretending to be, yeah.
And he was very nervous, and they even hid polling from him that showed the Liberals were doing badly because they thought it would sap his confidence. They wanted him out there selling the story every day, and if they'd told him that the polling was as bad as they knew it was, he would not have been able to do that.
So can I offer an alternative reading of this election?
You
that
can.
Is not...
I might not agree with it.
No, you might not. No, you might actually. So you know how they say in sport, when you're winning, it's never as good as it looks, and when you're losing, it's never as bad as it. You've heard that expression? I wonder if the same might be true here. This is one of those elections that happened in an extraordinary moment. The Trump intervention in this election changed everything.
Did it?
Yep.
Well, yeah,
I have
polling
no
6
doubt.
weeks ago was so different.
Yeah, and if this election happened 2-3 months ago, I'm not saying Dutton's the Prime Minister now, but it's a very different election. Now, that doesn't mean this is not a disaster for the coalition. It is. But it does mean that Labor's... my sense, if I put it in a nutshell, is this was an election where the electorate got quite nervous, acted actually very conservatively, and as a whole just said, everything's chaos, nobody move.
Yeah, I just wish they'd acted a bit more conservatively.
No. OK, but there's actually a point here, and this goes to the Labor thing, is they're no longer... sorry, the coalition, they're no longer Liberal. We've seen that in the way they're losing those seats. But they're not actually conservative in the classical sense. And when the electorate behaves in a classically conservative way, what you get is this kind of no sudden moves, and that might have hurt the Greens as well. Anyway, we'll see if this plays out. But
Well, we've got Dave Sharma on later. It'd be interesting to see what he makes of it.
Yeah.
They're like my mum now. Never in a capital city in this country.
Yeah,
Hate
right,
the city. They don't like the traffic, apparently. I think that's what happened. Well, I've done some digging. I think part of Labor's success is that they've evolved for modern politics, personally.
How would you know?
But if you look hard enough...
Where was that?
I was letting you guys do your bit, and then I was going to do the real analysis.
Okay.
But if you look hard enough, like I did over the weekend, you can still find, some snippets of what made the Labor Party great, which is a couple of drunk blokes in the pub running their mouth.
I'm going to sleep really good tonight. Not seeing his bald head anymore. Cheerio, cheerio, cheerio. See you later, buddy. Gina's waiting for you.
I tell you what, has that bloke not looked in the mirror? Mate, Dutton is your brother. That's board-on-board crime, OK?
Beard's good, though.
I like the beard. The beard's great.
All right. We're unified on this, surely. Our golden boy of F1 has done it again. Yes. Oscar Piastri dominating in the Miami Grand Prix this morning. Despite starting 4th on the grid, he made the climb to #1 look like a breeze.
And the Miami Grand Prix is underway.
It was an epic race with chaos right from the first turn.
It's Max Verstappen holding the lead, but he locks up, and Lando Norris is going to have the chance to get on the power. But Verstappen got his elbows out and maintains P1.
And it was in the mayhem that the cool, collected Aussie saw opportunity.
Oscar Piastri roars on by and takes 2nd place.
Applying pressure on the reigning champ going in for the attack.
The man from Melbourne closing in on a rival for the title. What a scrap for the lead.
Piastri fast gaining a reputation as a driver who makes no mistakes.
The world champion versus the championship leader into the first turn. It's late on the brakes for Max Verstappen. He keeps the lead for the moment, but Piastri powers by, and Oscar Piastri takes the lead.
While the drivers who started in pole position battled it out.
Lando Norris dives to the inside at turn 11, and Max Verstappen's nearly into the back of Lando Norris.
Neither could keep up with the Aussie underdog.
Oscar Piastri wins the Miami Grand Prix.
Oscar making good on a bet made with gritty dancing NFL star Justin Jefferson.
Tiki Valen hosts the Paddock Project F1 podcast. She was blessed to watch Oscar win live in Miami this morning. She's since flown to California, where she is, and she joins us now. Tiki, Oscar is off to a flyer this season, but is this one Piastri's best win so far?
I think it has to be right up there. I mean, I think what made it so special for me is that he didn't win it from pole. He has a perfect pole to win conversion ratio, but he had to fight for this one, especially against Max Verstappen, who 4-time world champion, new father, put up a good fight, put up a good defense, and Oscar really had to stick it to him to get past him and then manage those tires to drive off into the distance. So I think this is certainly up there, and I think it's going to be a big year for the Australian national anthem.
Yeah, he's a star. There's no doubt about that. Tiggy, I was watching the broadcast, and Martin Brundle and Crofty were talking about Piastri's race tactics, the way that he actually races, his craft, they called it, race craft. What does that mean?
He's smart. He's cool, calm, collected. The way that he races is incredibly smart. He's incredibly consistent, and he limits the number of mistakes he makes. And I think that's what it comes down to when it comes down to racecraft. Obviously, you have to have the pace, you have to have the speed, but I think it really comes down to his intelligence. He's now outnumbered his teammate in terms of wins, so there's a lot of great stuff coming from that racecraft, but I really think it's that consistency and it's that temperament.
Well, if there is maybe one criticism, and this is only coming from me, no one else, is that he's maybe a little bit boring. I hate to say it. But we did see he had a crack at the gritty, the little dance. Were you surprised in that? Is this a new side of Oscar? Could we potentially see him do a Danny Rick-style shoey?
I certainly hope so. I would love that for Oscar, but I think what's so lovable about him is that he is not that person, that he is so calm, cool, collected. He's got that dry humor. I think that's what makes the gritty so special, is that you don't expect it coming from Oscar. And I hope that he retains who he is and his own personality, but can add some of that flair here and there. And I hope that whenever the success starts to get to his head, he watches that video, because that will humble him for life.
Do you think Netflix are hating that you just described a gritty as being special? Like, that's as interesting as he gets? Like, surely they want someone going crazy and starting gossip, but he's just driving very, like, look at my racecraft.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, Oscar is not going to be the Drive to Survive star on that front, but I think what he does his talking on track, and that's working out for him just fine.
Tiggy, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Enjoy.
Hands off Oscar.
Go, Oscar. I love him. I'm trying to help him. I'm going to rebrand.
We've got a motor, but we'll see in a sec.
Right on.
Welcome back. This is The Project.
A social media post has led to the arrests of a 26-year-old man after he allegedly filmed himself firing a gun out of a car window at Maitland in the New South Wales Hunter region, and a 22-year-old woman has also been taken into custody. The pair were arrested overnight after they were tracked by Pol Air and tactical units. They're facing multiple charges.
And should dogs be banned from beaches? Well, it's an idea the Sunshine Coast Council is considering at Coolum over environmental concerns. A local committee is drumming up public support to petition against the move. They argue it's a space for people and their pets to unwind. But the council claims it has to consider the impact animals have on beaches.
Like what?
Well, I think they're worried that the dog poo will be left behind. It carries all sorts of germs. It
As
can
long
be
as
washed
the
down.
dog is not playing Kings of Leon on a Bluetooth speaker, it's like, who cares? So let the dogs be there, you know.
There's enough coastline for all of us to share it, isn't there?
But a lot of councils also have a period where the dogs are not allowed, like during the peak of the day.
Yeah.
You've got to be there early morning or at sunset or whatever.
Yeah.
That's a sensible
But if the
thing to do.
concern is poo, then time
Yeah.
does not matter.
I'm not a dog man, that might surprise you, but I think the dogs ought to be allowed to do what they want.
He's softened.
I love this. It's beautiful, isn't it?
You want a
Soft
puppy, don't
after
you?
the weekend result.
Yeah. He's heard the election.
I know.
He's listening.
Well, speaking of the election, guys, on the weekend, it was a rare time for those nerds to have the spotlight. Luckily, for jocks like me and Waleed here, there was plenty of sports still happening, and guess what? It is Jock O'Clock. All right, let's kick off with the NRL's Magic Roundup in Brisbane. It was beautiful. And as a Dragons fan, this feels so wrong, and I can't believe I'm showing this, but let's just say any magic that we had disappeared. Look at this. Surely a look at that. Look at that. Oh, my God. And then picks it up full length of the field. Look how quick he is. Oh, my God. He moved faster than Pricey when a Greens volunteer tried to hand him a hat.
Very true.
Now to Major League Baseball, because even though it's only May, we have already found the Dad of the Year.
What? He's been a catch and she covers his eyes. And he still caught it.
Unbelievable. I know, that is impressive. Dad wasn't as lucky when she did that on the drive home, so we wish them both a speedy recovery. The first baseman for the Miami Marlins, Matt Mervis. Man, that's a lot of M's. Well, he also took his eyes off the ball.
Grounder to short, and you can see it.
Oh, no.
All Mervis has failed the cup check here.
Yeah, the
now
face
doctors,
would suggest that.
They've advised him that it's going to be 6 weeks until he can get to third base again. I mean, that's a generous clap, but thank you very much. To the Premier League, the ref went down in the Southampton-Leicester clash. It was very dramatic, so the players took matters into their own hands. Look at this. Ref goes down, you can see it in the background. He's not good. Look at the referee
has taken a tumble. Stops play by
That's crazy. You can't play and be the referee. That's not fair. That'd be like if Rove was also my boss and a host of this show. Oh, wait. Anyway, in the AFL, the Dogs played Port in very windy conditions down at Mars Stadium in Ballarat. Now, Port got spanked, so commentator Ben Dixon, he tried to liven it up.
As we saw on the left of screen, very hard to kick it. And I know we're at Mars, but if you kick a goal from that pocket, Joey, dare I say it, that'll be from Uranus.
Thanks, Ben Dixon. I have always said it. No one does comedy better than a middle-aged retired footballer. Also, it is pretty good. And if you want to watch it again, because it was so good, be very careful Googling Ben Dixon Uranus. It's fraught with danger. Finally, let's go to the UK for county cricket. And I've never seen this before. This is amazing. You will not believe what fell out of Lancashire batter Tom Bailey's pocket.
I think he popped out of his pocket because
look at this.
Shaw picked it up.
His phone goes. He takes their phone to the crease. Was he expecting a call when he was batting? That's insane.
Dare we say?
Dare we say? I don't know. All I know is that a phone would have come in handy for this guy. Might have been a bit of support, maybe. Anyway, time for a break. Oh, not a break.
That's a big moment for you. Do you want to throw to the break?
Time for a break. My name's Waleed, and you're watching The Process.
Well, it could have ended in tragedy, but instead a record-breaking free concert on one of the world's most famous beaches has written Lady Gaga into the history books.
2 people have been arrested over a plot to bomb Lady Gaga's concert on Rio's famous Copacabana beach. Police allege they were trying to target the LGBTQI community. The free concert went ahead without incident, attracting an estimated 2.5 million fans. Gaga's peeps say it was the highest attended concert by a female artist ever. In other news around the world, PM Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to retaliate after Houthi rebels in Yemen launched a missile strike on Israel's main airport. At least 8 people were injured, with the attack coming just hours before the government was due to vote on intensifying the Gaza offensive. The IDF is already calling up tens of thousands of reservists to expand the assault. And Donald Trump is refusing to rule out military force to secure Greenland. He's also played down talk he's considering a 3rd term as president.
So many people want me to do it, but this is not something I'm looking to do.
The US president also confirmed he intends to reopen Alcatraz, the prison that once housed the likes of Al Capone.
You know, it's a sad symbol, but it's a symbol of law and order.
I'm surprised he didn't want to turn it into a casino, to be honest. That's more Trump.
Especially, it has great waterfront.
That's what I mean. He's a real estate guy. I want to get into real estate to try and sell it. I think it could go big.
Yeah, well, maybe you could put in a bid. I mean,
just when Peter Dutton thought he was having a bad weekend, Donald Trump didn't even know who he was.
Oh, no, that's... Wasn't that so
I don't
funny?
know that other guy.
Albanese, I like him.
Yeah.
He's a good guy. I don't even know who the other bloke is.
Did we just see a Steve Price Trump impression? God, what a day.
Let's get some more news now. And as the Liberals begin to pick up the pieces after their election defeat, Anthony Albanese is back at work in Canberra. With Labor securing an overwhelming 87 seats so far, the PM again thanked Australians for giving his government a clear mandate. He says he's optimistic about the future, and first on his agenda will be delivering a 20% tax cut, or cut I should say, to student debt.
I think if the Senate gets in the way of that, then they'll receive
the same response that the housing spokespeople for the Liberal Party and the Greens got on Saturday.
Well, Albo's all strut and sunglasses, but for the Liberal Party, it's a different story. It likes referring to itself as an election-winning machine. Of the past 81 years, 51 have been under a Liberal PM. But that machine has stopped working, and far from being able to fix it, many in the party can't seem to acknowledge it's broken down.
I think this was a smick campaign by Labor, destroying Peter Dutton.
It was so disappointing to take part in an election where there were just so many lies told.
That was false advertising by the Labor Party there, and it worked.
I think it simply didn't have policy that resonated. We sent the troops into battle without ammunition.
Looking for answers in the wake of the coalition's almighty collapse.
Our party has an issue in urban Australia, which is where most people live.
We do have to have the hard conversations now about how do we become more gender balanced.
Young people and women need to see us as an attractive place to put their vote.
150 seats. On current projections, Labor to win 87. The coalition would be reduced from 53 to just 39. Now forced to face how it all went so horribly wrong.
When Trump was elected, we thought that would actually be a good thing for the Liberals and end up becoming a total disaster. We sort of called it out.
The work from home is a good example of fundamentally misreading the Australian society.
Today, a growing chorus of voices calling for change.
It's very important that we focus on the economic issues and that we avoid these cultural issues at all costs.
But some in the coalition still seeking to shift the blame.
I don't think nuclear was the reason we lost.
The scare campaign tactics that the Labor Party used, particularly around nuclear and the price tag, which wasn't the price, was successful.
One factor I think we can all acknowledge and recognise is the Trump factor.
If you sling enough mud, it will stick. And absolutely, Labor, certainly the media, slung enough mud in terms of this particular issue.
Former Coalition MP Andrew Gee quit the Nationals in 2022 over its opposition to The Voice and inaction on climate change.
It's not the broad-based party that it once was. It has been a disastrous campaign.
Choosing to run against his own party as an independent, voters backed his choice over the weekend.
Some people on the fringes like division, but I think most people don't want nastiness. And I think the lesson is we've got to keep the political discussion in Australia civil.
But before it can begin rebuilding, a new leader must be chosen. Dan Tehan, Susan Lee and Shadow Treasurer Angus Taylor tipped as frontrunners.
If Angus Taylor's the answer, it's a stupid question.
The economic narrative was just completely non-existent. I'm not quite sure what he's been doing for 3 years.
Reduced to a rump, leaderless and divorced from their base, can the most successful political party of the post-war era survive the Albo-geddon?
Liberal Senator Dave Sharma is with us now. Dave, how are you feeling?
Well, look, it was a pretty tough loss. I'm still here by virtue of the fact I wasn't on the ballot this time, but I feel a lot for a lot of my colleagues, quite promising people who lost their seats. The loss was historic, though. I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. The worst result for us since we were formed as a party in 1944. We're reduced to something around 40 seats.
So what went wrong? What went so badly wrong?
I don't think you can, you can't identify a single issue here, but it was pretty comprehensive. But I would say, in short, we clearly did not appeal to, if you want to call it middle Australia or the quiet Australians or the median Australian. I mean, we went backwards nearly everywhere. We've been largely evicted from the cities. We're nowhere to be seen in Tasmania. In Sydney, we hold, I think, about 4 seats, possibly 5. In Melbourne, we're reduced to 1 or 2 on the outer suburbs. I mean, 2/3 of Australians live in our major cities. We cannot expect to be a mainstream political movement, a party of government, unless we are commanding the support or attention or at least the interest of those people.
Especially because the Nats do the regions. So
exactly.
What's the point of the Libs if they're not doing that, or the cities? If it were one result, you could go, well, it's a freak result. But it's actually 2 in a row now. There was the teal wave in the first year, you yourself were a victim of that. And then, as you mentioned, it's kind of been cleared from the cities. I suppose the question I would ask you as a Liberal, where is Liberal heartland now?
I think that's a question that will have to be grappled with. I mean, I don't know. To me, traditionally, Liberal heartland has been the forgotten Australians of Robert Menzies, the battlers of the Howard era, maybe the quiet Australians of Scott Morrison, which would tend to be people who... Look, to me, we're the party of social mobility. We're the party that allows people to realise their dreams, get a good education for their children, move up the economic and wealth and social ladders, give better opportunities to their children than they had, are able to buy a home, afford a home, get good health care. You know, that's our dream. Those are the sorts of Australians we want to look after. We've never been a class-based party. We don't assume to be, and we've never been a party that's meant to be for white-collar workers or blue-collar workers or tertiary educated people or non-tertiary. We've always sought to create a very broad church and govern for all Australians. That's what I think we need to get back to. But the truth is, where we've been left, sort of geographically, demographically, and elsewhere in Australia, is a rump of Australia. It's not the full embodiment of Australia.
Whenever I'm searching for answers, I check in with Gina Reinhart. She often has some great stuff. She has suggested that you guys maybe embrace more of a Trumpian style of politics or move into the kind of the Trump theory of politics. What do you think about that?
I don't agree. I don't think the United States is certainly in this respect, but in many others, comparable to Australia. And that's someone who's lived and worked professionally in the United States for 3 or 4 years. I think Australians, firstly, we have a compulsory voting system. We don't have an optional voting system, which creates different political dynamics. But Australia is quite a centrist and pragmatic nation. We look for people to solve their problems, not create problems or create divisions. We look for people that promote harmony and provide opportunity and generally speaking, try and keep politics out of their lives as much as possible, except on ballot day. America and the Trump experiment is a sort of vastly different beast.
But to Waleed's point, I mean, where is the heartland now? I mean, the teal movement is a massive problem for the Liberals. I mean, you may be lucky and get up in Kooyong and maybe even in Goldstein. But those people... we're in the middle of a cost of living crisis. We've got a housing crisis, and you still couldn't win.
Yeah, look, I think the warning signs were there in 2022, as Waleed mentioned. There were sort of alarm bells ringing. That
was no one listening.
I think, I don't know, but I don't think the lessons were learnt. I think it was too difficult to address them, or it was convenient to move on, or the political dynamics changed, or there was a by-election looming, or there was the referendum on the voice, and the immediate, took priority over the important. But, we lost seats in 2022 that we'd never lost before, right? That should have said, well, hang on, something's up in
and you haven't
your
got them all
heartland.
back. That's the point.
We haven't got them back, and we haven't won any offsetting gains. I mean, there was some people who had a theory that there was some broad political realignment that was happening in Australia, and what we lost in inner metropolitan areas, we'd pick up in outer metropolitan areas. Well, that hasn't happened.
Well, before we let you go, retiring Senator Linda Reynolds, she has been scathing of the Liberals, saying that they're too male-centric. Does that need to be addressed?
I think a lot of things need to be addressed, and I think that's one of them. I don't think we can say that our problems are confined to sort of gender parity or the culture of the workplace alone, though. And I do think.
But the work from home thing was a pretty terrible own goal.
I think that did not land well, and we
That's well
and we withdrew it. But I think people like to say and have this argument, where do you move on the ideological spectrum? To me, it's just about being modern, and maybe that's an ideological position, but recognising the reality of people who work flexibly, two-income families, both parts of a couple with a career, the pressures and challenges, and making sure that we are articulating our values into policies that address those people's concerns and priorities.
We didn't hear more from you during the campaign. That might have helped.
Lots of commentary about perhaps we'll see a third term from Albo, given the state of the Liberals at the moment.
Look, I'd say, I'm not going to be boosterish about our chances, but I'd say the electorate is more volatile in Australia than I think we've ever seen it, which means things that look certain, the day after election look quite different 2.5 years hence.
A lot of soul-searching to happen. Senator Dave Chalmers, I appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having me on.
All right, more Project soon. We'll see you soon. It's been touted as a miracle medication to help relieve osteoarthritis pain in cats and dogs, and for many animals it is doing wonders. But there's a growing cohort of pet owners warning this treatment could be fatal.
If I'd known the plethora of side effects that are associated with this drug, I might have been able to get her days before I did.
For 12 years, Lottie has been by Courtney's side.
I knew she was my dog from the minute I met her.
Lottie, this way.
She was really gentle. Quiet time. Lottie dog in particular was with me through some pretty horrible stuff that happened with my family. My husband was really ill. I was diagnosed with endometrial cancer, had multiple surgeries. She was just with me through everything, and just was my constant companion and best friend.
When Lottie started slowing down suffering from stiffness, Courtney took her to their local vet, who suggested Baranza, a monthly osteoarthritis injection.
They came to me saying it was safe and side effect free compared to some other non-steroidals on the market. And I believed them, so I happily went with their recommendation.
But shortly after her second injection, Lottie was presenting worrying symptoms, and her condition deteriorated further.
She was gradually becoming more lethargic. When I then looked at her gums were ghost white. She had evidence of bleeding on the pink skin under her legs. I went and picked up some poo and it was covered in bloody tar. So evidence that she was bleeding internally.
They raced her to the emergency vet. The dog had no platelets and underwent a plasma infusion. Courtney did everything she could to keep her alive.
Financially, I exhausted everything. My emergency fund. I got a second credit card. I took a personal loan. So Lottie's bill was around the $15,000 mark.
But Lottie's condition wasn't improving.
So I said, Baranza to my doctor. Then I was just hugging her, pairing her down, and I said, "Don't repeat. I just love you, Maria." And she was more worried about me crying. She's like, "Mum, what are you crying? Like, you're so sick." She fought for 12 weeks. In the end, it was the kindest thing I could do. Let her go. And now I'm just trying to say, telling her story.
Baranza and Silencia is an osteoarthritis injection that claims to target and neutralise nerve growth factor, a protein involved in nerve development and pain signalling. The monthly medication is said to reduce pain and inflammation in the joints.
One of the biggest problems that we are having with Baranza is it's being sold as zero side effects. And there's no such thing as a drug being injected into the body that is going to have zero side effects. Everything is going to potentially have effects.
Zoetis, the drug manufacturer, says the medicines are safe, with reports of side effects representing well less than 1% of the more than 18 million shots. And for many pet owners, it has helped their cat's mobility.
We're starting to see some neurological issues, cognitive decline, blindness, deafness, vestibular, vertigo, and even seizures.
In the States, after reviewing the drug, the US Food and Drug Administration forced Zoetis to include death as a possible side effect on its labelling in the US, issuing a warning letter to veterinarians. But the Australian regulator is yet to go so far.
The problem we have with the drug companies here in Australia is that they only have to put on their label any reports of side effects that occur here in Australia. We do not have to actually acknowledge any of the side effects that have occurred in Europe or America that happen to be from the same drug.
What is a real pain point for Australian pet owners is that the Canadian product leaflet has got over 16 pages of details here. And that's what we want. That's the changes that we're trying to make. And when you have a look at all of that data and you weigh up the potential lack of efficacy versus the potential side effects, it just comes down to being a game of Russian roulette for dogs and cats.
While many Aussies say the drug works well for most animals and improves their quality of life, others want more information about the long-term impact.
It should be used more as a last resort. And we've got to remember that this is actually targeting the pain. It's not actually targeting the actual inflammatory process that goes on behind the scenes. And there's so many other drugs, medications, and therapies that we can actually use to stop that inflammatory process to start with.
Now, there's a growing group of pet owners calling on the Australian Pesticides and Veterinary Medicines Authority to address the issues with the drug by updating its warning label.
Informed consent is what any of us want, and to make good choices for our animals, for ourselves. It's not too much to ask for, and Zoetis need to be held to account.
And they're preparing a class action against Zoetis, mirroring the one in the US.
Since this story first broke, our numbers have tripled, which is good and bad. It's heartbreaking because people are reaching out to me and just reliving that grief over and over again as people keep coming forward. And that guilt and that anger and that frustration just keeps rolling. But it keeps fueling my fire that we have to make positive change so that animals are not suffering in silence because of this.
I don't like to weigh in on anything that's about to be a class action, but just imagine the scenario of being a pet owner.
I think you're doing the right thing.
Yes, and then to have to live with the outcome of that.
Easy, yeah.
It's, yeah.
Good on her for putting her grief to one side to warn other pet owners. A statement from APVMA can be found on our links page. Check it out.
All right, we're off to a break. See you soon.
Well, the future of Australia's film industry is up in the air after Donald Trump announced a 100% tariff on movies made outside of the United States. He claims making films overseas is killing Hollywood. He even labelled international incentives to film elsewhere as a national security threat. Federal Arts Minister Tony Burke says he's monitoring the situation, but at this stage, it's unclear what it will mean in practice.
Oh, no. Don't they make them here because it's cheap?
Yeah.
Well, not if there's a tariff on it.
Not if there's a big tariff.
He's going to make a 100% tariff on any movie that comes out of Australia.
Anywhere, yeah.
Any movie that's not America.
Well, we'd never have had Paul Hogan and the shrimp on the Barbie and all of that.
You call that a tariff?
Yeah,
This is a tariff.
What about the short film we're working on, Pricey? That's gone up in flames just there.
Short film.
On your own
About trying to be funny?
No, how we've met. No, but I
Are
mean,
you trying to be funny?
This is what the film's going to be. This is going to start right there.
I think they'd be happy to tariff that.
Tariff? No, they'll let it in for free. It's going to be a box office smash.
OK, well, I guess we'll see. Our next guest has given a classic fairy tale a bit of a refresh.
I think if Rapunzel was black, this is how the story would go. The prince would be like, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair. And then African Rapunzel would be like, OK. Good luck.
Would you please welcome Anisa Nandaula? I like this. I like this as an idea. Are there any other fairy tales you think could get a similar sort of a treatment?
You know what? I reckon Cinderella could do with a bit of a rewrite.
Amen.
Yes, because the prince goes around looking for the person that owns the shoe and he touches the feet of every woman in the kingdom for free.
Yeah.
In this economy.
Big time.
You know, like, I reckon Cinderella, if she let the prince touch her feet, she should have made him pay, and then she should have used those funds to buy the kingdom.
Only feet for Cinderella.
Totally.
Yes.
You simply cannot give your feet away for free. That is just
100%.
outrageous. That's a motto I live by.
You feel me, Wally?
Yeah, I gotcha.
I like you skipped me. Anyway.
I just wanted to put him into some kind of hole.
I don't know what that could mean.
I'll have you know, Waleed always pays for feet stuff. It's fine. We all know that, OK?
Good Muslim men.
Yeah.
Hey, I've done a bunch of gigs with you. You're killing it at the moment. It's very fascinating. You've got an amazing story. You migrated to Australia when you were younger from Uganda. What were your first thoughts of Australia like, or like school in Australia when you got here?
Oh, so my mum wanted to move me to the most multicultural part of Australia, so I grew up in Rockhampton. Yes, and I thought it was super duper Caucasian. Like, I remember being at a grocery store with my mum. We were lining up, and the lady in front of us, we were telling her there's no black people in Rockhampton. And she's like, that's not true. My son goes to school with a black boy. There he is. And then we looked over, and my brother walked in. That's my impression.
Was there anything else about school? Like, were there your individual peers that would surprise you?
Yeah! Redheads.
Oh.
I didn't know that your people came in that edition.
Yeah, it's a limited edition, but they're there. Yeah.
I don't know. There was this boy called Stuart. He was the first redhead I met. And I couldn't stop staring at him because in Uganda, redheads get kidnapped by witches and used for spells.
Really?
Is this another high five moment?
Yeah.
I don't think I can join in.
Go, Arlene.
Yeah, they get kidnapped by witches. And I felt like he kind of looked down on me because I was from Uganda. He was like, you must be so happy that you don't live in Uganda. I was like, you must be so happy you don't live in Uganda.
What sort of spells? What sort of spells? I have a few redheads in my life.
Oh.
Yeah. Are they good luck? Bad luck?
I think they're bad, but you don't need to worry about that. You're in Australia. The sun will handle them.
You have such a massive following on social media, like 600,000 followers, I think.
Oh, it's not that big, but
we'll just go with that.
Let's go
Is
with
it
that.
nerve-wracking then when you post a joke with an audience that big?
Yeah, it's really scary because you have to deal with all this negative self-talk. Like, before I post a video, I'll be like, you're not funny, you're not good enough. And then you'll post it online and people comment, you're not funny, you're not good enough. And sometimes self-talk is like common sense. So you just have to be brave every single time you post. So it's a test of bravery and it's fun.
Well, I think you're killing it. Like, you're making the right decisions. One thing I only learned this about you today, and I'm fascinated about it. You are, a comedian. You're killing it at the moment, but you used to do slam poetry.
Yes.
How on earth, there couldn't be two things that are more different. How on earth did you go from slam poetry to comedy? I
I was so lucky because I was performing poetry at a festival and there was a comedian who saw me and he was like, between your poems, you're really funny. And I was like, a man said I'm funny and now I do this for the rest of my life.
Oh, OK. Because sometimes when I do stand-up comedy and it doesn't go well, people call that poetry. Because I'm like,
That's really funny.
I can rebrand.
Wrap it up.
That's very good. We don't need to high five. We can just do that.
Yeah,
That's very good. So you're currently on tour, and you, like a lot of comedians, talk about your relationship in your stand-up.
Oh.
Now, I've always wondered about this. What effect does that have? I mean, it's great for the gags, but what effect does it have on the relationship when you're off stage? Like, does it put a lot of pressure on it?
Yeah, touring when you're in a relationship is really difficult, especially because me and my partner, we're actually expecting to move in with my mom. So I know, it's really hard. And my mom, staunch Muslim, my boyfriend from the Gold Coast likes to party. And we're moving, I don't know why that's...
Was it just to phone home?
Just to Shaka.
Yeah, all right, Shaka.
Just to Shaka. And we all living together, and I left them because I was touring for 2 weeks, and my mom calls me, she's like, this is not working. Me and your boyfriend have decided one of us must go. And we think it should be you. This is what I'm worried about every time I'm away on tour.
No. I wish I'd come up with the idea of a show called You Can't Say That. That's a fantastic title. What can't we say?
Well,
I can say whatever I like.
I don't know.
Really?
Well, having grown up in Queensland, I feel like people don't commonly discuss race and how it impacts people's lives. It's not dinner table conversation. But in my comedy show, I talk about race, what I've been through living in Rockhampton. So, yeah.
It's right up your alley, Steve.
Yeah, right up my alley. See, we'll be in the front row, for sure.
Well, look, tickets for Anisa's Melbourne and Sydney encore shows, she's sold out. The rest of them are on sale now. All the info is at our website. Would you please thank Anisa Nandaula?